Europe is set to make a move that could further strain its already fraught trade ties with China. The European Union plans to ban all products made using forced labor following allegations of human rights violations in China's Xinjiang region. But Brussels will seek a different approach to the United States, which imposed a blanket ban on all imports from Xinjiang province in June. Instead, the EU ban will focus on all products made from forced labor within and outside the bloc. A draft document of the law does not cite individual countries that could be targeted by the ban, but it will seek to address the issue of goods and supplies from Xinjiang, where Beijing has been accused of coercive labor. China has repeatedly denied the allegations. The upcoming law comes after a UN report yesterday warned that more than 50 million people worldwide have been forced into modern slavery. Officials have criticized the international community for relaxing efforts to counter forced labor. For more, Ross Cullen joins us live from Paris. Ross, what are the key tenets of this ban on forced labor goods?
Well, this forced labour ban bill was due to be officially announced today, Tuesday. It's been slightly delayed because there is this major set-piece event on Wednesday with the State of the Union speech by Ursula von der Leyen. She represents the European Commission, and that is the part of the European Union which is looking at this now. We've already seen lawmakers approve the idea of bringing in such a ban on forced labour, on people having to work under duress, under human rights abuses associated with labour. And that is something that the European Union certainly does want to bring in. It does, as you're right, slightly differ from the United States approach with the UFLPA, the Uyghur Forced Labour Prevention Act, specifically in the name of the piece of legislation passed by the United States saying Uyghur, so representing what they believe are abuses carried out onto the Uyghur Muslim community in the Chinese region of Xinjiang. The US going as far as even saying there could be cause for not just human rights abuses, but possible genocide. China denies these allegations completely and says that is an example of an outside power trying to meddle in the internal politics of another country, especially associated with cotton products coming out of Xinjiang. So that is the approach the United States took in 2021. Also, the European Union, you're correct, does want to not just focus on trying to stop products associated with forced labour from coming into the bloc, but also on ensuring it has its own house clean, making sure that any manipulation of workers, of denying workers payment, of deferring their payment, of restricting their movements, of forcing them to work under threat of penalty does not occur inside the bloc, as well as associated with products coming into the bloc. So the idea really does not specifically also mention China, but it's another example of the European Union indirectly targeting China and the allegations of forced labour going on there. We saw it in the Indo-Pacific strategy launched by the European Union, also not specifically targeting China, but having an Indo-Pacific strategy, especially launched and supported by France, is certainly going to be one where China is in the spotlight. So this is not specifically directed at China, but it certainly indirectly does to be looking to those allegations of forced labour taking place in Xinjiang.
And does the bloc have a plan B if the ban comes to impact supply chains in Europe? For example, has it identified alternative sources for critical goods?
Yeah, supply chains have been severely disrupted since the coronavirus pandemic, with the European Union really trying to say that they want to be able to depend on themselves for as much when it comes to supply chains inside the bloc to support the bloc. Of course, it's unfeasible to be able to want to get every product just made in the European Union. It is asking companies and national authorities to be particularly diligent, exercise due diligence when it comes to contracts for products coming into the goods, manufacturers, suppliers and producers. When, for example, you might notice a red flag needs to be raised if there is a country which has perhaps not been adhering to or complying with or fully implementing international labour laws, if there is a country which is known to be particularly lax on protecting human rights. There needs to be a doubling down, the European Union has been saying in this draft document, a doubling down by companies and then by countries at national governmental level as well, to try to anticipate any problems associated with forced labour products as early as possible, to try to minimise the possible impact on supply chains. So this really is another example of the European Union trying to take those steps, but as you say, in a slightly different manner, a slightly different way from the Western ally, the United States, has done so. But certainly this forced labour ban bill, when it is officially announced, does not directly target China, but China is certainly one of the main names that the European Union wants to try to encourage as much as possible to stop the use of forced labour and trying to dissuade other countries from doing so. That's a problem that you have with supply chains as well. The European Union accepts and admits there could be an impact on supply chains, but also said it does want to bring in this bill to be able to try to protect those people who are victims of forced labour.
Ross Cullen in Paris, thank you for that.